The carrier import page makes it easy to load in a bunch of carriers via a spreadsheet upload rather than going in and creating each carrier by hand. So in order to get started, all we have to do is click on the green Create Import Session button and then give our import session a name. By default, it'll just say import and then the date and time, which is totally fine. So let's click Create. And this will take us to a page where we can upload a CSV file with all of our data or download the template. So I've already gone ahead and downloaded the templates right here. And in this example, we will see that you've got name, optional ID, DOT number. In fact, let me undo a couple changes I made here. By default, it's going to, the top row is going to be all of the different fields that you can import, and the second row will tell you whether or not it's required. So in this case, name is required, but nothing else is for a carrier. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this data that I created already and put it up here. And you can see that I've got import example and import example 2, and then I've filled out some of the optional fields for number 2. One thing to note is that if your customer gives you a different spreadsheet with different headers, that's okay. You don't have to make these match identically. If the header is different, there'll just be an extra step in the import process that we'll see here with DOT number. I'm going to go ahead and give this a value of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to download this. So it's important when you download these files that they need to be CSV formatted in order to work with the import. And once it's downloaded, I'm going to jump back over into LoadCall and select that CSV file. So after uploading it, you'll see that because I used the template, all of these are green except for this DOT number test, which is the field that I manipulated. So right here, the column is yellow because it hasn't been mapped. Because it's an optional field, it doesn't really matter if it's not mapped. If a field like name wasn't mapped, then you wouldn't be able to do the locked mapping because it's a required column. But this one, if we want to import it, we need to make sure that it lines up. So I'm going to line up DOT number test with DOT number, and then we can go ahead and bring it in. One thing to note before you import, you can always click and edit these fields. So if you see that there's a typo right here, this should just be 1, 2, 3 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can change it without having to fix it in the spreadsheet and re-upload it. So you can do that in this data mapping phase right here if you notice any anomalies before you go ahead and import it. So once it's all cleaned up, I'm going to click Lock Mapping, and then the progress bar is going to continue. For carrier specifically, there are no database associations we have to build, so we can just click Build. Same with the sub-associations, which are used in different imports. And now we're in the Review and Import. So you can look at these. You can also manipulate them right here if you notice that something's looking off before you do the full import. But this looks good, so let's go ahead and click Upload Carriers. Now, import example is going to fail because I already have that imported, whereas import example 2 should come through fine. So let's click Upload, and you'll notice that it gives us a little error, and if we hover over it, it says a database record with the specified name has already been used, so it failed to upload, which is totally fine and expect in this case. So you can't create duplicates. It'll prevent you from doing that. And after you've created it, you can go ahead and actually view the carrier we just made. So import example 2, ID 1, 2, 3, 4, DOT number 1, 2, 3. And you can archive this import, which will just kind of hide it from this list. Otherwise, it'll be back on this page, and you can go ahead and back in all the carriers, see that import example 2 has been uploaded. In addition to creating a bunch of new carriers via an import, there's also the ability to make corrections to carriers via an import. So rather than going back and correcting fields by hand, you can go ahead and upload a spreadsheet with those corrections made in there. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to click on the blue Upload Replacement Fields option at the top. So we're going to just replace some of the properties on those, and we're going to keep the default name. And in here, you also need to have a CSV file and an import. We have the import template again, which a lot of times is the same, sometimes is different. Some fields cannot be replaced depending on the different properties that they have. But I'm going to go ahead and jump back in over here into our spreadsheet, and underneath the carrier replacement tab, you'll notice that I've taken the name import example 2. The name does need to be an identical match to whatever's in LoadCall in order for it to match up. If we have one that doesn't match up, then it won't be able to import over it. And I'm going to replace the DOT number with this is replaced. put some junk in here so you can see we're putting that in there. And I'm going to go ahead and download this file. Once again, it needs to be in CSV format. And back in LoadCall, I'm going to go ahead and click on the select CSV file, choose that file that we just downloaded. And in here, you can see that the mapping is already set up, so we're good to go. And this is the DOT number, ASDF. Let's throw a couple numbers in there for fun so that you can see that this is working. So we're going to go ahead and lock the mapping, build the associations, build the sub-associations, and now we are going to replace whatever import example 2, I think it was 1, 2, 3 is what we put in there, but we're going to replace it with this big nasty thing right here. So let's click Replace Fields, and you can see that we can get the green checkbox. That means that it worked out properly. And if we go back out to import example 2 and click on View, you can see the DOT number is this big long nasty thing that we typed in here. So the import replacement worked. So using import replacements makes it pretty straightforward to do a bulk replacements. This can be useful if a bunch of mileages change on a route, or if a bunch of GPS coordinates are updated or property numbers or something. So you probably use more on like pickup and drop-off locations, but still useful to know for carriers that you can go ahead and do that. And yeah, that is imports in LoadCall for carriers.